Next thing I remember is a stroke of lightning against the blackness. Blaze of a thunderbolt seemed to linger there, not going away like lightning usually does. Second thing I remember is a voice speaking in foreign, like a man muttering to himself. I tried to open my eyes, but they were too heavy.
Mr. Bunny, stirring I see,
he said to me.
Das ist gut. But now, sleep.
After that, I remember the pain of sitting up. It never hurt so much to sit up, bub. The light hurt my eyes at first, too, even though it was just a railroad lantern down in a dark hole in the ground. Doc Vic had him a little operating room way down in that played-out silver mine of his. There was what looked like telegraph wires on the ceiling nailed to the rafters. And there was a big machine, big as a pedal sewing machine, except it had a crank on it. Doc Vic was turning that crank faster and faster, and I felt right then like someone poured pure grain alcohol in my veins and lit it on fire. Soon after, I went under again. Next time I woke, I felt some better, just kind of funny, like part of my body was missing, or half missing. Something else was missing. I couldn't remember my name or who I was. Took me a long time to get that back. Years. It was somewhere in there, but locked away. Doc Vic said it was something to do with my poor brain losing its breathing air when Pat killed me. Pat Garrett did kill me, too. The doc told me he bribed the Mexican fellas watching my body, replaced it in the coffin with one of the vaqueros I shot, or parts of him. The doc drugged my body back to his mine, covered in sawdust and laying on blocks of ice. He took it down deep underground, patched it up, and put life back in it. He says my spirit was hanging around my body like they do for a time after dying. When he called down the lightning for me, it's like my spirit rode that lightning right down like a bronc-buster riding a Thunderbolt. Rode it right back up here, my brain. I realized when I woke up that I was naked as a jaybird. This did not sit well with me. I was cold, and it felt like a man with his back to the door on a night when his enemy was looking for him. But what bothered me more was all that sewing. My right wrist was sewed up, and my hand looked all wrong. That's because it wasn't my hand. Pat Garrett fair destroyed that hand. And this one belonged to that pockmarked vaquero I killed. You can see, it's too big for me. My left leg from the thigh down belonged to that other hombre. It's crooked and fat, but I make do with it. Now, some of my inner parts is theirs too. I got my own heart, thank God. But my lungs belong to that tall vaquero. Later, I got me a new liver. A young priest died from falling off a horse, and the doc sent me to dig up the body. He hadn't been embalmed. Liver was still good, he said. It was winter too. That helped keep it fresh. The doctor didn't take body parts from people who died because of disease on account of they was tainted. He liked to get bodies of folks who'd been killed from falls or hangings or from being murdered, as long as it wasn't poison. That's why he kept watch on me that night. Said he knew I was a killer the minute he laid eyes on me. Knew I'd tangle with those Mexicans. Saw the stamp of destiny on me. And he saw their destinies too. Short. How'd he do that? He spoke of the power of the lightning and animal magnetism. That the Thunderbolt he put in me, he put it in himself. Not quite the same. He takes it different, in something he calls a charged tonic. He says that's because he never died, but me, I have to have it right in the old nerves. Now I got what he calls a feeder right here on the back of my neck, just under my collar. Me and him, though, we had one thing in common. The Thunderbolt. It changed us both somehow. Makes a man live longer, real long. And it makes him sense things, like a rattler sensing your footstep a ways off with his tongue on a rock. When I woke up in that mine, he called me Billy, and that sounded right. I had a few memories of my mother coughing her life away in bed, of pulling handcuffs off my hand, of seeing the cuffs was too big for them, of seeing a pal get gunned down. But I couldn't connect none of it. Seemed like it all happened to someone else. And when Doc Vic saw I couldn't remember much, he said he'd take care of me.
In essence,
He said,
I am your father.
now that made me feel good. I couldn't remember much of my past, but there was something in me longing for a father. Guess I always had it in there. So I went right along with that. And I served the man for more than 25 years. That's right, 25 years I never ventured far out into the daytime. Only at night. One hot day, a diamondback twice as long as your arm came into the mine and reared up, hissing and rattling. That thunderbolt the doc put in me came out flashing up so I was faster than that rattlesnake. It struck at me, but I caught it right under its jaws. Caught him a whisper away from my neck. I could feel his tongue tasting the skin on my throat. I held him out at arm's length and sent the lightning through my hands into that old snake, and it went rigid as a pine and started smoking. I burned his golden eyes right out of his head. We ate cooked rattler that night. Cooked then and there. Most of the time we stayed up north, out east of Fort Sumner, at the mine where Doc poked and prodded me and made notes. He had a feud with old Mr. Death himself. So he kept on with his work to build up other fellas out of nothing but spare parts, like in that Mary Shelley book. He got one of them up and moving, too, but that patchwork fella was an imbecile and mostly drooled and played with his private parts. One day he just keeled over. I did errands and dug in the mine and gave the silver to Doc Vic. It was mostly played out, but there was a little silver to be found. And we still sold ice to the town now and then. Time passed full queer for me in those days, and years went by like weeks. One time an outsider came snooping around, knowing the old doctor had gold. This poor excuse for a road agent was a red-headed son of a whore with a scraggly beard and an eye patch. I smelled him before I saw him. My senses was that acute, and Lord knows he smelled high. I came out of that mine sniffing the air. I came out of the mine sniffing the air that evening, and then seen him ride up on a bent-backed hammerhead roan, and I said, "Smelled you coming, bub. What you want here?" Gingerhead cleared his throat, and he said back, "Your money or your life." He waved a rusty pistol around, and I doubt he would have fired anyhow. "Bring that old fool out here, and I better see his gold. I've got a short fuse stick of dynamite in my saddlebag, and I'll set to burn it and chuck her in the mine unless I see gold fair quick. Silver'll do too." "Sure, bub," I said, grinning like I was simple-minded. "I'll do that." And as I said it, I walked up to his horse. "Let me just help you down there. You can come and get the gold." I knew he wouldn't go for it, but it confused him a moment or two, and that gave me time to step close. I grabbed his belt and dragged him down off his horse and threw him to the ground. To me, he was light as a half-empty feed sack. I stepped on his gun, and while he was blinking his good eye and cursing, I took the gun and tossed it into the brush. Then I knelt down and put my hand on his neck and let go of some of the thunderbolt. Sent it burning into him just like the rattler. Boom, he went stiff, his remaining eye popping halfway out. I started into choking him, and he couldn't fight, being all stiff with electricity. I killed him quick and good, drug him off to the mine where the doctor praised me and chopped him up for parts. Now, you notice I don't carry a gun. That vaquero couldn't shoot straight, and I got his hand. I can manage a Winchester if I have time to aim is all. And anyway, I don't need a gun so much more now, with the Thunderbolt in me.